Good morning, everybody. Happy Monday, and welcome to another edition of Mamas in Miami, where together we're navigating parenthood with fierce love and unwavering solidarity. Happy Monday, everybody. We made it another week. I am going to be inviting our co-founder, Lizzy Chiappy Diaz, back into our feed this week. We're so excited. She went on vacation, and she's here to tell us all about it. We can't wait to hear how it went with her and her baby on flight. So let's invite her in and get right down to business. Whenever you're ready, Lizzy, we're here.
Hi,
Yes.
good morning.
Welcome back.
Yes, I am back and I'm happy to be back. How are you doing?
Good. I bet you nobody's happier than Willie.
Yes. Yes, he is finally back to schedule, back into his routine and happy to be home. He's definitely happy to be home.
Well, we're so glad you had a good time. I know you've been looking forward to this overseas trip for quite some time, and we are
Yes.
ready to hear all about it. True or false, Lizzy? Because I never did it myself. I was always thinking at the very beginning of my kids' childhood that maybe it wasn't the right time to go to Europe with two little ones in diapers. And then thinking back after the fact, I thought, oh, maybe it was easier because they're babies. They don't know any better. They don't need to be entertained. They don't talk back to you. So you're here to settle the score for us. Is it easier or harder to go with a little one to Europe? I think you just froze. Liz, you there? Lizzy, can you hear us? You're frozen, my friend. Let's wait a minute to see if Lizzy comes back. Would you like us to re-invite you, Lizzy? For those of you joining us for the first time today, we are talking to our co-founder, Lizzy Chiappy Diaz, and she took her first overseas trip with her baby boy, Willie, who's just over a year old. And she's about to tell us if it's easier or harder to travel with a baby. You there, Lizzy? She's back.
All right, I'm back. I'm back. I'm like, what happened?
No worries. So we cut off right when you were about to tell us which one's better, to travel with or without a baby when they're this little overseas. What's the verdict?
Well, I traveled specifically with an 18-month-old who was already full-blown walking and active, and I will say that is not for me. So for me, it did not work out, but I'm very clear as to why it didn't work out. Um, and I will say that I have a friend who took a trip a month before me. Yes, her son is so he's her son is 2 months older than my son, but if you do like the calculation of like when they took their trip and they took our trip and we took our trip, they're basically a month apart.
Okay.
Um, Obviously, we know when they're little, those months make a big difference. So I think that also is a thing that I will say when before they're mobile is probably best. Um, I will also say, like, so there's a bunch of factors as to why our trip did not work out the way we wanted. First and foremost, something that was completely out of my control that no parent can control is he started the trip sick. He was teething hard, had a slight fever, and a bad cough. So, anyone that has gone through that, you already know that that throws everything off. It throws their sleeping off, it throws their mood off, and it throws their eating off.
Right.
So it was like a trifecta already from the get-go that just didn't lend itself to success. Second, just because your baby can travel on your lap for free until 2 years old does not mean that they should.
Ah,
So on the way there, he was on our lap, which is what made honestly, if he had his own seat, the flight there would have been fine. Because on the way there, you know, you schedule the flight in the afternoon or at night, and then they sleep for most of the time. So we only really had to entertain him for, you know, a few hours, but then he passed out. But the thing is that he passed out and he didn't have his own seat. So he like sprawled himself across like three of us, you know, like my husband, myself, and my mother-in-law.
Like little stud.
Yes. So we didn't sleep. And then he truthfully didn't have the best sleep because he's not super comfortable. That's like not the best call, right? So as soon as we landed in Madrid, I told my husband, I was like, I'm not doing this on the way back. Book him a flight, book him a seat. And so with Miles, we got him a seat on the way back. And now, of course, if you are trying to make a trip happen because you have something that you need to make it to abroad somewhere, and this is the only way financially you can do it, of course. Just know what you're signing up for, and just know that the flight won't be enjoyable if they don't have their own seat, to be honest. Because even if they do go to sleep, you're still, you know, holding them, and they're no longer baby. Like my kid's pretty big for an 18-month-old, you know?
Sure.
And then the next factor was, you know, it was such so I had a wedding to go to, and I knew that I would need babysitting for the wedding. So I invited the three grandparents that are in our lives to come with us. And,
You needed all three of them.
well, I decided to make it a family trip, and, you know, and I knew the three of them would love to be a part of the whole experience. And so my dad offered to do all the planning of the trip. And that sounded lovely, right? Like, who doesn't want someone to just plan everything for you, right? But the thing is that no one is going to have the awareness and the looking out of like what's really appropriate for a baby and what's really appropriate for everyone and all the moving parts. So I really truly needed to be involved in every single detail because basically we had too much planned. It was too many moving parts. We started in northern Spain, and the way northern Spain works is, you know, you don't really spend too much time in any one spot. You like stay in one spot, and then you do a lot of day trips. Like you drive an hour or so here, an hour or so there, and you do that kind of stuff. And by the time of, I mean, between the first plane ride, then we had a 6-hour layover, then another plane ride to get to northern Spain. Between that, then putting him in a car seat, putting him in a stroller, because he's still, while he walks, he's not walking where he can like walk miles and miles. Like he's not to that point yet either. He's little, you know? So between being strapped and all the things, he was just over it. It was just too much, you know? He's an active, fully highly energetic little boy right now. And he's in that transition period of becoming a toddler, but yet still very much a baby. And so it was just, he didn't want to be contained anymore. We needed to find ways to expend his energy. So like the way the trip was set up just wasn't conducive to allowing him to do that so much. And then of course, you know, battling him being sick, the time change, him acclimating to that. It was a lot. And so then obviously if it's a lot on him, then it becomes a lot on the parents. And we were beat to shit 2 days into the trip. And it's a 16-day trip. We still have a long way to go.
So far you're saying you landed, you realized if it's possible in any way, shape, or form to give your child the extra seat, even if they are under the age of 2, it's worth the spend. And you're also recommending that the parent be involved in the entire process of the itinerary, because at the end of the day, parent knows kids' schedule the best, and maybe abuelo was not privy to Willie's schedule and planned way too much.
And you also got to know, like, so this, I'm not even mad at my dad because this is all my fault. I know how he travels as well. And him and my mom, like they get a lot done on their trips, you know? And I should have known better. And so that's like, you know, I take full accountability for that. But yes, especially on long flights, I still feel like, you know, like we had a couple hour flights here and there because we had multiple stops in our trip. And so an hour flight on your lap, not a big deal. Maybe a couple hour flight, not a big deal. But an 8-hour flight, for sure, the seat.
Was this
and then yes,
or an afternoon flight?
Afternoon flight.
So he kind of went straight into his sleep schedule on the plane. Like you entertained him,
Yeah, not straight into it. It could have been a little bit of a later flight. We left at like 3 something, and I thought it was a 5 something flight. I think even later would be even better.
Okay.
But it was definitely the flight over there would have been a non-issue if he just had his own seat.
Okay.
Yeah. Then getting over there, um, it was just too many moving parts. We had too many stops, too many moving parts. We stayed in a hotel. If you've also traveled to Europe, you know that like even if you're staying in the best hotel in an upgraded room, they're still really small. So we actually traveled something that I do want to recommend. So if you're gonna be in a hotel situation and they're in your room with you, we a friend of mine lent me something called a slumber pod, and it's basically like I'll call it like a tent that you put over the pack and play, and it's like a blackout kind of tent situation, but it also is very breathable, obviously, so ventilation, and it comes with a pocket. So like if you want to put a baby monitor, you can still put the white noise machine in there. And what was great about that is like, so Europe in the summer, by the way, the sun doesn't go down till like 9:30 p.m. So, and you can't guarantee that anywhere you're going is going to have like blackout shades. And, but besides even the light factor, I don't know about if your experience, if you've ever put your kid in the same room as you, it's like if they wake up, they stand up in that pack and play and they're staring you right in the eye, like, come get me. I see you. Hi, mom and dad.
Yeah.
Come get me. Why haven't you gotten me yet? So what was nice about that slumber pod is it gave, it cocooned him, first of all, which helped him sleep because it was a blackout situation. So like light wasn't an issue.
That's
And then be amazing. And since he's also blacked out, like he doesn't sense our movement in the room, and it gave, him cocooned him and gave us some privacy, so that we could still move about.
Is it like one of these round things that also don't let the kids get out of the cuna?
It would be very hard for him to get out, but I guess you could say it's one of those things too. Yes.
Okay.
And it was easy to put together, super easy to put together.
Side note, we have a difference of age in kids of like 10, 11 years, right? So I have a 12-year-old and a 10-year-old. And when we brought them home from the hospital, we were in between apartments. We brought our son home to a one-bedroom apartment and he was with us for 5 months in our room. I never bothered buying a bassinet. I bought a pack and play. But that pack and play ended up working out because we took that pack and play everywhere and it was always his cuna and he didn't have to adjust to a new bed, a new setting. But my son started crawling out of the pack and play very quickly because he was such a big baby. And I always wanted something to contain him. So I would put my kids in sleep sacks so that they couldn't lift their legs over the edge. So with the cocoon, allow them to stay in the cuna or the pack and play?
Yeah, totally. They wouldn't, I mean, I'm sure kids can figure it out, but it would definitely deter them a little bit more, I would believe. Yes.
That's
And it's
amazing.
called the slumber pod.
Slumber pod. We're not advertising. We're not promoting a slumber pod, but Lizzy used it and it works, folks.
Yeah, slumber pod doesn't even know I exist. So yeah, this is not an ad whatsoever. So, but it was great. It was great for the hotel settings. And we didn't travel with the pack and play. Honestly, every hotel had like their own version of a pack and play that was easy to borrow and was set up. And I had a non-issue with that. I just brought my own sheet. I brought his little loveys and stuff that he likes to sleep with and his blanket, and that's it.
And parents out there, way back when, en los tiempos de antes, because my mom used to do this to us, we can't sleep without blackout to this day, me and my two brothers. My mom, when we would move into a home or there was like a place where we needed to extinguish light in the room, my mom used to have aluminum foil and used to tape it to the windows to reflect sun out. So if you can't travel with a pod, travel with aluminum foil.
Yeah. I will suggest the pod though. It was pretty great.
No.
And then
want a pod for me right now for me to travel because I hate rooms that don't have blackouts.
I know.
That
might be a funny invention to come up with. And
great.
And so what happened?
That's a great hack.
Yeah. And then my other tips, so like what I would do, so like the perks of staying in a hotel is like when it came time for the breakfast buffet in the morning, is I would load up the lunchbox that I traveled with on the plane to have like snacks for him. I like brought, reusable silicone containers, and every morning in the buffet, I would stock up on snacks to make sure I had snacks on me throughout the day because, once the kids are hungry, they're hungry. And the restaurants in Europe take forever. They take forever and ever to serve, and you know, so I came loaded. I would cut up fruit from the buffet. I would grab yogurts from the buffet, you know, a piece of bread, whatever I thought he would eat and nibble on, I brought it with me.
You need to. So I kind of had called Lizzy over the weekend because I was dying to know how it went on her trip. I was so excited for her. But you got to tell everybody what Willie did to you with his favorite breakfast food.
So then here's the other thing that you can't plan for and that you just have to be like ready. He all of a sudden was not into eggs. And eggs is like our go-to for breakfast. And I knew I could count on eggs in every buffet, and he was, but he just was not interested. So we had to get really creative. And this kid lived off of milk, yogurt, and fruit on this trip. He even lost weight. I started to feel like a bad mom, like nutritionally depleting my son, but he just like was not interested. And let me tell you that food was the least of my concerns on this trip because he eats everything. We've exposed him to a bunch of things. We've taken him to restaurants here. He's eaten off our plate, and it's been a non-issue. But I guess traveling over there and the way they prepare things and cook things, I guess the flavoring was either too strong or it was just off, and he was just not about it. So we couldn't, like, things that I thought for sure I would get him to eat, he just was not eating. And also, like, I'm used to feeding him a lot of vegetables, and the Spanish don't do vegetables. They don't do vegetables. And so that was also a challenge, you know? And so, but thankfully, you know, like once you find what they will eat, I mean, I've loaded up on yogurts. Thankfully, every buffet had kiwi. He loves kiwi. Mandarins, oranges, banana, like all of that, you know? And he was drinking milk. Like I had to surrender, and I was like, okay, he's literally went back to like drinking milk as much as almost like he was a baby again, like baby. But I was like, whatever, he likes it, it's making him happy, it's filling him, it's, you know, it has nutrition, we're gonna go with it. So I feel like also in traveling, you just have to like surrender and just like make things happen, you know, and you gotta meet them where they're at and just like make it happen. And so we finally just got to the point too, once we landed in Madrid and once all of the many stops and stuff like that was over with. In Madrid, the beautiful part there was we were going to be there for 6 days so we could like be consistent, which was nice. And also we stayed in an Airbnb like apartment, which was like a 4 bedroom, 3.5 bath. And I have to say, while a hotel has its perks because of the breakfast buffet, you have the concierge that you can ask lots of questions. You can easily order the milk through room service. You have it for night, you have it for morning. What I liked about the Airbnb was that he had his own room. And then we had a common area where we could hang out. I also like that you have a legit like fridge and freezer situation. So like now instead of asking buffet every morning for like a bag of ice to keep his items cold in the lunchbox, now I could just freeze my freezer packs that I traveled with. It was easy to just go to a market, have stuff there, make breakfast there. Finally, when we could cook eggs ourselves, we did get him to eat them a little bit. It was still a struggle, but like it was a better that we were cooking them ourselves now, keeping them plain and simple. And then it's also easy because, you know, if you leave with food from a restaurant, you can store it. You have a stovetop now, you can heat it back up to feed him. It just made it easier in that sense. And just having more room and more space, and also that, you know, a washer, we could wash
Oh,
clothes.
huge.
Huge. And just somewhere where he can like roam around inside, because sometimes, I mean, the weather was spectacular. If I have to recommend traveling to Europe, the beginning of June, the weather was amazing, but there was a couple of rainy moments, and it was nice that we could be inside somewhere where we had space instead of like a really small hotel room.
Right. So I want to give the perspective of an older child with a couple things you just touched up on. I discovered when my kids were 3 and 2 that the best way for me to visit Disney was not to stay on property. It was always to stay right outside property. We would drive to Orlando, and once we got to Orlando, we would find the closest supermarket. We would load up on all their breakfast items because breakfast in Disney is always so expensive. And we started renting Airbnbs or at least a room with a kitchenette. And it was so clutch for me to have at that time. I was still cleaning bottles. So I would take a little bottle of palm olive, the brush for the Dr. Brown bottles, because that's what we were using at the time. And breakfast was made, and then I would fill up a lunchbox with snacks for the rest of the day because, you know, Disney snacks are also expensive. And that's how we would get around. We also realized how important it was. By the way, we should do another podcast just on traveling to Disney. We immediately learned how much better it was to travel to the park in our own car, because at the end of the night, the monorail, the bus, all of that was great for us, but we would take the sleeping kids out of the stroller, have to close the stroller, hold the sleeping kids, hold the stroller. I mean, it was just so much easier to walk the distance to the parking lot, put the kids in the car seat, put them back in the stroller, and then stroll them right into that Airbnb.
Yep.
That's so important for us. And to this day, my kids are 12 and 10. If we find a way to have a room with a kitchenette, we always do it. And they already know. We bring breakfast or we buy breakfast wherever we land, and we stock the fridge.
Yep.
Always.
And so I really appreciated the Airbnb for that. You know, it was just nice to have a landing place, and for him to have his own room was just even better than the slumber pod situation, because we didn't have to use the slumber pod then, and then he just had his own room, and it was perfect, you know, because everyone then had their own space, everyone could operate, hang out, we would have dinner, we'd watch TV, whatever, and we could be in and out of the apartment if we needed to, and it was great. So I definitely recommend that. And
the food. Let me touch up on the food also, because when we spoke on Saturday, you reminded me of something I had done the first time I took my kids overseas. Their first overseas trip was last year to Italy. I knew Italy wasn't going to be a problem because it's pizza, pasta, and ice cream. But we're taking our kids now to Spain for Thanksgiving, and my kids are picky eaters. And once they're in a tight spot, they'll begrudgingly eat the food, but it's almost like you have to force them. So you know what I did yesterday, thinking of you and what had happened with Willie? We took him to a Spanish restaurant for lunch after church.
Nice.
And I told them, I go, from now on, we're going to go every 2 to 3 weeks. And I want you guys to start tasting things from the menu, because I can't have you lose weight like Willie did in Spain when we go for Thanksgiving. So yesterday, I'm like, okay, in Spain, here's what you can expect. Ham, cheese, bread. I've got one that doesn't eat cheese. I've got one that doesn't eat ham. I have one that only eats octopus, believe it or not. I mean, he's going to be fine. He's probably going to eat a tentacle a day. Like, I'm worried about him. But the other one. So we're going to start doing that every 3 weeks. And it's also a parent. If you guys know that you're taking a trip to somewhere different than the day-to-day that your kids are used to, start exposing them to foods.
Yeah. And so then our last stop, by the way, was Menorca for a wedding I had. Thankfully, the two grandmothers. So, because at this point, so then this is the other thing too to be prepared about, is like, I could have had an army of grandparents with me and it wouldn't have mattered. My son was so thrown off, and especially since he started off sick, that all he wanted was us, specifically my husband. So it was hard to have like any reprieve and break, because he just wanted us. And so something if you are able to, we were like thinking about it, and like we truly would bring like the nanny the next time, because the nanny is the only other person that's like his constant of every day besides us. And also, like, it's like, you know, you travel with grandparents, but like it's their vacation too,
Right.
you know, like unless you're like paying their way and like something like that, but it's the, you know, they each paid their own way, and it's their vacation too. And you know, so it was like a little bit of like, we had envisioned what it would look like to have the help, and we thought it would look a little different, and it turned out to be, it just changed, you know. In the Airbnb, they were able to help us out more since we're all now in one place together. You know, like one of them would wake up with him, and the other one would like make his breakfast and stuff like that, you know? So that was like a little bit more helpful. And then when we got to Menorca for the wedding, the whole reason of this trip, the two grandmothers did step in, and they were like, you know, we'll take him completely so you guys can enjoy the wedding. So that was like a nice little break for them for him to not be in our room, you know? And I have to say, I was very thankful. Like all of Spain, especially northern Spain, had amazing playgrounds. I was definitely impressed, like incredible playgrounds that we visited all of them. So it was great to also take him to something that he could enjoy and do. And we just kind of like, you know, other parents haven't felt like they needed to do that, but for whatever reason, we felt like we did. We felt like we needed to like give him a little bit of a taste of like what he's used to in his like normal schedule. So we visited playgrounds, but luckily it was like so beautiful and the weather was great that it wasn't like so bad to do that, you know, and just like take him to experience different playgrounds and do different things. And that was like a nice experience. And on the way back, he did have, I will say, another contraption. And I know that some when you travel with kids, you have to like put a limit on like how much crap you bring, right? It's like how many contraptions and little things are we gonna bring to like for this one tiny person? But
Right.
I have to say, like, it's almost worth it so that you have like a better experience, you know? Like there's just certain things. So like something that someone else lent us, which we couldn't use on the way there because he didn't have his own seat. But for the way back, it was almost like this little like bed that you blow up that was super easy to blow up
Seen
that you put in their seat so that they can lie horizontal and they can literally be super comfortable once they do sleep. Let me tell you, that was amazing
them.
because even with his own seat, once he fell asleep, we would have still had to prop him up against us. Like he wouldn't have slept comfortably, and I don't think he would have taken his nap the way he usually would have if we didn't have this bed. It was super easy to assemble, and even once he woke up, because it kind of like, since it's, think of it like almost like a pool float, if you want, if you will, it elevated him up, so it was like almost even more comfortable for him, you know, and he could even like touch the screen that was on the seat in front of him. So it was like, I highly recommend it too, and it didn't take up too much space. It was on the carry-on, you know, and I definitely recommended that. Like if we had had that on the way over, our flight over, a non-issue. Our flight back was absolutely terrible only because the flight schedule, it was a 10 a.m. flight. So basically the flight took over his entire day schedule. So he did nap like he does, but only 2 hours in an 8.5 hour flight. And the rest of the flight, he was incredibly hyper. And it made me almost feel like it was cruel to have an 18-month-year-old high energy filled boy on such a long flight. He was just like besides himself, and he didn't cry or scream, but he was just so hyper and bouncing around everywhere. And so my husband and I, so that the people around us didn't go crazy on us, had to be super engaged and involved in it, and it was exhausting. And so I think that that flight home solidified that we won't do this again with an 18-month-old. But truthfully, so like if you had to ask me, because here's the facts, it won't change. The two facts were I had a wedding I didn't want to miss of a very dear friend. And the second main fact is that, and even after my experience, I still feel the same. I didn't want to leave. I wasn't ready to leave my 18-month-old behind so far away and be so far away. So if you had to ask me, knowing everything I know now, and if I had to rebook this trip, what I would have done was just flown straight to Menorca where the wedding was, got an Airbnb, probably a house, brought the nanny, still invited the grandparents, but brought the nanny, been with them for 3 days, let them get acclimated, get them set up, have everything figured out, then gone, stayed in Menorca, but gone to stay on property for the wedding. Like my friend had invited me to, but I turned her down because I was traveling with the grandparents. Stayed on property, been fully present for all the wedding stuff, been there, enjoyed it, come back to the Airbnb, be there maybe another couple days, and head home. And
And I left my kids at home.
I'm
I
sure
know.
as he gets older, I will. I just still, it's my first.
Yeah.
It's my first. He's 18
Yep.
months. I was like, I can't get to him super fast.
Of course.
So,
I totally get the and this is exactly why we're doing this podcast, to get different opinions, because everybody's different. Nobody's parenting journey is the same. I will tell everybody on this podcast openly and honestly that my first child, I left him to sleep at my mom's house when he was 7 days old because I was so exhausted, you guys. I hadn't slept, and I was, he was born, I think, around 9 something at night. They gave him to me at midnight. He went straight to my room. I mean, I hadn't slept in I don't know how many days. And I have no shame in leaving my kids with the grandparents, because at the end of the day, my sanity is that I need to be rested too.
yeah, yeah,
But,
yeah.
and don't get me, for my children, and I miss them dearly, but I'm the kind that will leave them behind. You're the kind that maybe now you'll leave. You leave
I
them.
leave him behind. He spends a lot of nights and weekends, full weekends at the grandparents' house all the
Yeah,
time. It was just the
the
distance.
distance. I get it.
Distance and the length of time, because I'm also someone that I was like, I'm not going to fly all the way to Europe to be there for just a weekend to fly back, because that's even hard on me. Like, forget about the baby too. Like, even adults, like, that flight does a number on us too. The time change does a number on us. Jet lag does a number on us, you know?
Absolutely.
So I was like, I'm not going to do that to myself either, you know?
But don't
So
you feel like you need a vacation from your vacation
oh,
now?
1000%. I couldn't even go. I didn't really even go back to work. I mean, I stayed active on the back end this past week, but I had to sub out all my classes. I was like, I need to recover. I
Yeah.
was like, I need to see my neck is a mess. My back is a mess. I was like, I need to see my healers. I need to recover and adjust back into, because then we had to all adjust back to the time change, you
Right.
know, which was also a task too.
Tell everybody what Willie did when he got home.
Oh, he ate eggs like normal.
And he
Like he hadn't been rejecting them for 2 weeks straight. Like
and
no
he
big
clapped.
deal. Oh, and then as we're heading up to our apartment in the elevator, he started clapping. Like, oh, finally, you people bring me back home. So all in all, and I feel like, you know, we got to go on a dinner, by the way, in Madrid with another couple. It's a teacher that teaches for me in my studio and her husband. And her husband said something that sat with me and has still stuck with me. He said, every parent needs to go through this though.
Yeah.
He's like, even if you didn't go through it now and you like waited to travel with him until he was 5, you still would have gone through this. He's like, every parent has to go on that trip where it's like just an ass whip and you figure a lot out. You figure out your kid, you learn a lot. And 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 so he's like, that's it. From here on out, it will never be this bad again. And I was like, you know, that's so true.
Every trip is a learning curve. And guess what? The next time you take a trip, he's going to be a little bit older and things are going to shift. I can tell you now, looking back with my 12 and 10-year-old, the Airbnb worked. The driving to Disney and not taking the damn bus and the monorail worked. I could tell you right now, that's what you did. Somebody saying, "Love you, Lizzy, you did it." uh,
Yes, I did it.
I can tell you now that I teach my kids how to eat because and let me tell you something. I'm not against, like, I already thought about it in the back of my head. My in-laws and my parents are, and not my parents, my in-laws and my husband will probably kill me. But if my kids don't go eating for like 48 hours while they're there, I'm fully prepared to pull into a McDonald's
Right.
because I'm not going to ruin my trip because
Yeah.
they're not eating.
Oh yeah, no, I had to surrender to a lot of things that I usually wouldn't do here at all when I'm home. But like I had to surrender, you know, and just be like, you know, like croquetas are the things that get to the table the fastest. Do I want him to eat fried food? No, but is he hungry? Do I need to put something in his mouth? Yes.
It's all about adaptability,
Yeah.
right? And trial and error.
Yes, absolutely. And I will say, you know, and you make the best of it. The weather was spectacular. We ate great food. We enjoyed good wine. The beer over there even tastes different. It's like, I'm not even a beer drinker. It was great. And my husband and I, our marriage is stronger than ever. I mean, we had many laughs. We had meals on the bathroom floor of our hotel room, some nights, and but it's memories that will last a lifetime, and we're stronger than ever, and and we learned a lot, and it is what it is.
That's the only thing that matters and the only thing that counts is that you look back at these memories and you laugh. And I've got plenty of those with my husband too. And I mean, I don't want anybody to think that I leave my kids behind everywhere I go. But definitely another conversation for another day is that I really truly also believe that it's very important to have a time with your significant other. And I am all about traveling with my kids. I am all about exposing my kids to the world. But I'm very clear also that my husband and I were a partnership first and that we need time together.
This will definitely be another conversation we have because my parents were big on this too, and I have lots to say about it
I
also.
would love to have that conversation with you. As a matter of fact, my husband and I are planning for our 15th wedding anniversary, a very big trip that I have been planning since I was recovering in bed. Like, that's the other thing, you guys, with my spinal surgery, my husband had to get me out of this room recuperating quickly because I've planned way too many trips since I've been idle.
I love it.
I'm so ready to get out there and see the world. But we're planning a very, very big trip next year, and we're going to be gone for a good time. And I'm going to miss the kids like crazy, but we got to do it.
You got to do it. Got to do it.
Well, Lizzy, final verdict. Will you take Lily to Europe or overseas for an 5-hour trip in the next 3 years?
Probably not.
Well, that's all the time we have for today. We're going to extinguish the fire on our virtual little tribe meeting here.
Yes.
We are now adjourned.
Yes.
Thank you for sharing with us today your experiences.
Of course, always. I'll always be honest, brutally honest, and straightforward. Give it to you how it is.
Yeah, me too.
And again, here's the thing. Like I said about my friend that traveled, they had a great time. Their son surprised them, did all the things that they needed him to do to have a great trip, and everyone's experience is always going to be different. Don't be hard on yourself. It is what it is.
Same thing goes for you, Lizzy. Who knows if he was just off because he wasn't feeling well. Also,
Yep. Oh, totally. For sure. For sure. Yeah. 100%.
It's going to be a different experience.
Yes. All right, everyone. I hope you have a great week.
Everybody keep that coffee strong and your sanity intact. Have a good week, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.